resentment, or temptation toward Russian gas. It has become the most accurate description of what happened inside the European Union and the division of its member states with their stances on Russia's gas. They all agreed that they were against Russia and did not want its gas, but they differed about their ability to withstand it. Russia, however, decided to accept only payments in rubles for their gas exports, which undoubtedly pushed European Union into new troubles. But the real question is what would happen if Moscow decides to close its gas taps when the European Union is still heavily dependent on Russian oil and gas. European countries still do not know the speed they should end their reliance on Russian energy supplies. There is also the absence of a clear strategy for this issue. As for the German economic minister, he confirmed that his country could impose an oil embargo on Russia by the end of the year 2022. That means that only then Berlin will support tougher sanctions on Moscow. According to the signed contracts, France is still importing Russian gas in dollars and euros despite the announcement of its refusal to pay for Russia's gas. French Minister of Environment announces a standard European policy to reduce reliance on Russian gas to diversify. In Hungary, they still oppose any sanctions toward Russia and pay for Russian gas in rubles. This came after they learned a lesson from Poland and Bulgaria when Russia cut off the gas because they refused to pay in rubles. However, other European countries say this situation caused fears. It is also almost sure that governments will face the same fate as Poland and Bulgaria in mid-May if they do not pay in rubles. The European Union ministers to meet in a hurry and under intense pressure to reduce the flow of Russian gas. But despite all intentions, there is a considerable gas rift that splits the countries of Europe between those who reject it and those who agree on strict measures to reduce Russian gas supplies. After all, European countries face two types of challenges. The first is how to accept Vladimir Putin's decision and pay the corresponding gas in rubles while at the same time do not violate European Union sanctions. The second is how to obtain and develop alternative gas sources to reduce the dependence on Russian gas. Russia did not wait long after it launched its war on Ukraine to raise fears of stopping natural gas supplies to the European Union. All this happened in response to their support for Ukraine with weapons and military aid, forcing all the countries of Europe to buy their gas in rubles. Russia is still exporting oil worth the hundreds of millions daily to Europe. 29 countries today depend on Russia, where about 40% of their gas needs come from. In a look at Europe's money that goes to Russia, the latest statistics show that Russia's oil and gas revenues in the year 2021 amounted to 9.1 trillion Russian rubles. After the invasion of Russia on Ukraine, Moscow's reserves are now about $630 billion, which is the highest level ever. It is the wealth with which Putin fights any effects of inflation caused by Western sanctions, which have frozen about half of Moscow's assets. According to the Center for Energy Research and Clean Air, the European Union has imported worth £37 billion of fossil fuels since the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. According to these statistics, Germany was the first importer of energy, followed by Italy. So currently, Germany is getting about 25% of its oil and 40% of its gas from Russia, and it seems that the situation in other European countries is not much better. Especially if we know that Slovakia received 96% of its oil imports from Russia last year. This prompted European analysts to desire to move away from the European Union from Russian oil and gas, which is, on the other hand, faced with the reality of the lack of unity for this decision. This means that the European bloc will not implement a comprehensive energy embargo on Russian gas before accessing more options to obtain supplies alternative. Compared to gas commonly transported through pipelines, it is difficult for landlocked European Union countries to find new sources. However, U.S. intervention is futility to support allies in Europe by shipping an additional 15 billion cubic meters of liquefied gas to Europe by the end of the year. At this time, European countries fear the Russian reaction before reaching an alternative to Moscow gas. Russia can now reduce gas supplies and raise the price whenever they want. America and the West describe this as blackmail, while Russia says it was just a response to the sanctions. For now, European hardline stances are toward refusing to pay the price of gas to Russia in rubles. But behind the curtain, many European countries have already agreed to pay in rubles. Italian Prime Minister said that Germany's most significant gas importer had already paid in rubles but did not name the company he had in mind. The Russian ruble reached its highest levels against the dollar and the euro in an attempt by Putin to offset millions of dollars that Western countries have frozen for Russia abroad. Europe's desire to diversify from Russian natural gas is pushing Russia to look for new markets. Russian exports flowing to Europe could potentially be diverted to the Asia-Pacific region. It requires, however, active development of export infrastructure, construction of new gas pipelines and liquefied natural gas plants, which is also time-consuming. Still, there is an alternative for Russia as well. All in all, European Union now wants the continued flow of Russian gas with the collapse of Russia's economy. And the real question is, are there any solutions for Europe and the United States to achieve this with their approach?